Good evening. Welcome to our second Wednesday of the month, which is our evening meeting, 5:30 p.m. I think we'll get right into the agenda. We have Gifford Pinchot National Forest with us. Yeah, right. Unless both of you want to come up, then you can use that table. It's up to you guys. And on the deal, there'll be a little button. You should see a bright green light when it's on and going.
And you typically have to speak fairly closely to the microphone
Gotcha.
for my old ears.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
That sounds good. All right. I'm gonna scoot so I can look at you while I'm talking here. Good evening. I'm Johanna Kovarik. I'm the new forest supervisor on the Gifford Pinchot National Forest. That's a permanent position. I know we've had a lot of transition on the Gifford Pinchot over the last couple of years. So I'm really pleased to introduce myself as the permanent forest supervisor, and I'm really excited to be here. And I'll let my deputy introduce himself.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. Dan Scaife. I'm the new deputy forest supervisor on the Gifford Pinchot. I've been here, this is my fourth week on the job, but I'm also in a permanent capacity. So we're starting to even out on our permanent workforce here in the leadership role.
Comes from Arizona. They sent him up while we still had good weather here. I noticed they didn't send him up in the middle of winter.
That they were snowed in.
Yeah.
So I started in September as the acting deputy forest supervisor on the Gifford Pinchot and was with the forest through the 3 fires that occurred, Kalama, Goat Rocks, and Sayusan, into December. But originally before here, I was in Central Oregon on the Ochiko National Forest as a district ranger. So my husband and I were really excited to move to Vancouver. We just closed on a house. We're working on moving and kind of finalizing all of that, but really excited to be here in Western Washington and hopeful to be here for the long haul to build some roots here and be here in person. So really just wanted to get the time this evening to introduce myself and Dan and to start to build relationship with the commissioners and with the folks here in Cowlitz County. And to hear from you, just any communication preferences, if we can provide regular updates at particular meetings, if there's been something that's worked for you in the past, that would be great to hear. And both Dan and I are open to take any questions that you have or any updates you're looking to hear this evening.
I think mainly, I don't know if Gifford Pinchot comes in very regular. I know they participate in what's the group for the river?
For the river?
Cowlitz, Tootle.
The Spirit Lake Tootle
Yeah.
Cowlitz River Collaborative.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know, and I know there was, I sat in on one of those for Commissioner Weber that was out, and there was Gifford Pinchot was represented on that. So I think you guys are part of that too, right? Yeah, you weigh in on that.
Yep, we are. And the ask has been again with turnover, our project manager on Spirit Lake, that position is currently vacant. We're working to fill it, as well as a planner position. We just recently filled a administrative and field operations position just the last couple of weeks. And then our engineer for Spirit Lake is coming back from the detail. So we're working to get staffed up on that team. But we've also heard from folks in the collaborative as well as from the facilitator that there's a real want for us to be there in person, of course, and in a continuous fashion. So Dan and myself will be there tomorrow at the collaborative meeting as well.
Good.
Were you with us at the trip up past Mark Smith's place?
No, I haven't had that opportunity yet. Next week I'm going up to see Ray's place, the Learning Institute.
Oh, yeah. How can you get there with the washout?
He says I can, yeah.
It's still this side of the washout.
Yeah, this side of the washout, as long as nothing more happens. I'll be up there to visit that.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us what might be the salient features of the Gifford Pinchot, or what might concern you that you feel people should know in general, like, I want the people to understand the following things about.
Sure. Let me think about that for a minute. So the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, I can start out with just some basic facts about it, is about 1.3 million acres, and it stretches from Rainier National Park in the north down to the Columbia River Gorge in the south, and then from Mount St. Helens to the western side of Mount Adams. So it's a pretty large landscape, and it has some incredible features, as we know here on this side, Mount St. Helens, very dramatic piece of the landscape, and then Mount Adams as well. There are a lot of incredible recreation opportunities across the forest, and I'm really looking forward to getting out and experiencing some of them this summer, but it ranges from anything to exquisite wilderness opportunities. There's some incredible fishing. One of my favorite things is caving, and there are also caves on the forest, including Ape Caves, which is open for visitation. And then just the volcanic landscape itself, backcountry skiing and snowboarding has gotten really popular on both Adams and Helens. There's opportunities for backpacking, just across the board, some really excellent opportunities for recreation, waterfall hikes. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited to get out there this summer. We're starting to see some increased visitation across the board. I think a lot of the national forests have through COVID, and our recreation staff has been working on providing and increasing opportunities and stabilizing the ones that we have. We also have a very active timber program. We've got over 90 active sales on the forest right now, and we're working towards increasing forest resilience projects. We have quite a few active planning projects that we're working in close partnership with state DNR, as well as the collaboratives on the north and south zone. We are also really working on projects related to our facilities and infrastructure. So there's road work occurring on the 90 road as well as the 25 road this summer. So there will be some closures. Off the top of my head, I couldn't give you the mileposts on those, but I know Kayla Miller and Alexa, our public affairs folks, have been working to get that information up on our Facebook page as well as on our forest website. Lots of work going on across the board on the GP. I will say internally, since I got on board, one of my big focus areas has been on staffing up. We've had some capacity challenges over the last couple of years. And so we've been at about 60% capacity, and we're working to staff up. And so the forest leadership team, which consists of myself and Dan, as well as an executive assistant, we have 3 district rangers, one on Cowlitz Valley, one on Mount Adams Ranger District in the east, and then one on the monument. We have permanent folks in all of those positions, and working on getting a start date for a new person coming in on the monument here soon. So we'll have all of those positions filled. And then we also on the leadership team have staff officer roles, which manage portfolio areas. One is natural resources, or our restoration and stewardship staff officer. We have a community engagement staff officer that manages recreation, public affairs, heritage, engineering, our engineering staff officer, and then our employer of choice staff officer, which manages administrative functions, basically.
Yeah.
So far we have, I think, a full staff of permanent folks right now, with the exception of that one ranger position, which we're hoping to onboard this summer. With that, we're also working on looking at hiring some GS 579 positions, so some career ladder, lower graded GS positions, so entry level folks. We're really interested in working with our communities and looking to be able to hire local folks and bring local folks on board on the forest, as well as to fill in some of our crucial district leadership team positions at those 3 districts that we talked about. We are also looking at building opportunities for our employees to engage in person with each other across the forest, as well as with our communities. And so I'm really interested in hearing about opportunities here in Cowlitz County where our folks can get out in person to engage with the community, or where we can show up more frequently, where folks have questions, or where there are community events that we'd be welcome to join.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty broad overview. I'm sure I missed some very important things. So Dan.
That was a very great overview. And being new here, I would lean more on my experience as a public servant, managing public lands, and just that recognition on how important I know those resources are for the local communities and your constituents, and the recreation, the tourism that brings to the communities. My past experience in North Idaho, I would say we had really good relationships with all the counties surrounding the forest, and that was because we were willing to engage with counties. And I think that is just the way of the future, and establishing those relationships, really working together, recognizing these are public lands for the citizens of the United States, but it's not lost that those local communities have such a strong influence, and there are a lot of needs that are not lost on me. So anything we can do to continue to build the relationships, like Johanna said, opportunities where we can engage with your constituents or yourselves in any way, being new here, and this is a special place. I haven't been here that long, but it's a beautiful place, and I'm proud to be part of it in my short time here, and looking forward to doing what we can to build the relationships and help out where we can.
It's what I would call a tourist destination for people around here. I mentioned I've had some experience up there. I've helped move a bridge around the Cispus camp. Anthony Creek, I think they call it. We built a bridge. Beautiful. You get up out of Blue Lake, you climb up out of there, and you get up out of where it's where there's haze in the sky, and you get that blue sky with atoms and everything around there. I know back in the day, they used to, a club put on, they called it, I think, the Mount St. Helens 100, and it was a motorcycle event, a trail ride, and it was limited to so many riders. And they had riders from all over the nation sign up and come and do that. And then that people in that club got older and kind of went away. So that
Is this a trail ride or a race? It's just.
it's not a race. It's just a motorcycle trail ride. And I think I'm trying to remember, it's quite a few years back, but I think they were allowed 100 riders, and they'd put out, and you'd get people from all over the United States want to come out and ride this thing. Because there's not a lot of, we were talking about it a little earlier, the Northwest has some assets and stuff that you don't find in a lot of other states. And so they'd come from back east to get a chance to ride some of this, what did it be them, a high mountain type.
So the idea was to explore as opposed to exercise your motorcycle skills.
Yeah, it was just a chance to get to see the scenery instead of, you weren't racing with anybody. It was just to get a chance to see.
You didn't use your street hog on there, did you?
Well, I've been up there on both my dual sport and my dirt bike, and I told them I'd take the street bike every so often on the backside, although the paved roads need a little help.
Oh,
But
okay.
other than that, and I know a lot of those trails up there, when I would sit on, it's called RCO now, but it was IEC back in the day, came from grazing trails, is what I was told. They used to do a lot of grazing of probably sheep or what kind of livestock, but so it has a great history. It goes back a long time. And
Yeah.
yeah, I've even been on horseback up in there when I was a youngster.
Cool.
And just a final comment on that point, that some of the most value I've found in working with these local communities is learning some of that history and what goes on here. I don't come in, even though I have a lot of experience in other places, I don't know a lot about this place. And I'm looking forward to learning from you all what makes this place tick and what the issues are, and working together. So thank you.
When we sit here and we talk as a county about bringing people in and tourism type things, I always think, we're so blessed here. You're not that far from the ocean. You have Mount St. Well, you can't get so far up in it anymore, but and you have the Gifford Pinchot. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff. We actually are pretty blessed in this area. So
Sure.
those type of things, I'm always interested in working on that type of stuff.
I get concerned over changing the profile because tourism is a double-edged sword.
Mhm.
Well, what is so nice about something pristine can be really taken down fairly quickly. We certainly all enjoy going to Hawaii, but at some point you look and say, I think I'll go to Tahiti where there are fewer people.
Yeah. And what, here's the beauty of when you start talking about the higher elevation forests. There's not a lot of people going to do a whole lot during the winter because they're snowed and they can't get up there. So it gets a chance to recover some. And so,
Yeah.
and I've, on some of the high trails like Boundary and stuff, you can't even get up there till mid-July. So the time frame for idiots to do damage is pretty narrow, and most of the time those type of folks aren't going to expend that much energy to get up there anyway.
Did we want to see if there are
Yeah.
questions from there?
Yeah, okay. We're always open to the public. I told him he was off my list for another month because he showed up.
We put him on our super high intensive training list. We go by the acronym.
Great to hear that there as more permanent full-time staff at the show. And just thinking about community groups to maybe recommend, you might have some interest in learning about. I know that there's a pretty active mountain biking community locally in Castle Rock, the Growlers Gulch Racing Club. And they have done actually a lot of trail building. They're an amazing force at organizing volunteers and people from all across the region. So
Is your mic on? Mike.
I know that
There
they
you
have collaborated with the Forest Service in the past to build trails up on Mount St. Helens for mountain bikers, and bring lots of people with them and activity, and are really interested in partnering and working with people. So if you just kind of Google that Growlers Gulch Racing Club, you'll find them.
What was your name again?
My name is Michael.
It's nice to meet you, Michael.
Thank you.
Can you say the name of the club one more time for me?
It's Growlers Gulch Racing Club.
Growlers Gulch. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I'm assuming you still do chainsaw certifications and all that kind of stuff for people that want to work up there.
Yeah, we do. Yep.
I could have lots of questions also. Like we have the noxious weed board, and they do a pretty good job. And I think they work with you from time to time. Or is that your understanding also?
Can you say that one more time?
The noxious weed board?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have some projects on so every year around this time, we're working on finalizing our program of work for the next fiscal year. And we definitely have some projects on there for noxious weeds, I believe with Cowlitz County.
And most of those noxious weeds, they get there by people, by birds, by wind. Who knows
All
about
of the
weeds?
above and probably other vectors as well.
Do you show pictures along the trails of weeds that you want reported or anything like that?
So I'm, still learning about what resources we have here. Usually at the trailheads, there's some information, potentially with pictures, and I know we have on our website, but in terms of specific trails with photos, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. And well, next.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
please feel free to interrupt. I can always ask a whole bunch. You say you're about 60 capacity on your staffing?
We've been at about 60%. Yeah.
Is that like everybody else, just people don't want to work?
It's a mix for us. We have had a whole lot of opportunity with new positions across the agency as well as across the federal government. And I think folks are taking advantage of those opportunities across the board. So there's been a lot of shifting. I think it's no secret that there's some challenges on the federal government side to getting through the hiring process. And I know that that's been a challenge too. But I will say that we have some excellent HR folks that have just gotten on board in the region as well as in the country that have been making just massive strides at hiring. I think in this region alone, and Dan, help me remember the number, but I think we have brought on over 250 new folks just in this region over the last few months. So we're getting there. But I think it's a mix of a lot of different factors for us.
Do you have an age group, an age limitation?
An age limitation?
Age limitation.
No, only on the lower end. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can get a job at 17 under some of the authorities that we have, but 18 for, I don't know what the state laws here are.
So a typical 17-year-old might live in Castle Rock, commute to a place at the of employment and then go back, or they camp out with you?
Well, it depends on the job and what we have for government housing available. A lot of those at that age group are typically students going to college, or you have resource assistant programs, student conservation. Lots of authorities where we try and get people interested in natural resource management and create those opportunities and build that recruitment potential for the future.
I'm just blown away because this strikes me as if I were in that age group and situation, I'd be right there. I mean, this is pretty exciting, good way to spend time, good way to learn. And you're understaffed. Of course, maybe you're looking for some more highly qualified individuals.
Yeah, I don't know what the statistics are on where our vacancies are, but they would be more higher level positions in the agency where you would have to have a certain level of experience to get through educational requirements, and those are across the federal government. So we do have lots of younger folks that are interested in working, and so we do a pretty good job there. And not that we don't do a good job other places, just building that capacity to bring people into the workforce. And like Johanna was saying, there's lots of opportunities in the Forest Service all over the place right now. So it sort of thins out the pool. But we are bringing in those 250 from outside the agency too. So it's not just moving people around, which that's not healthy for an organization. So that is good that we're bringing in an outside experience and perspectives.
I had mentioned earlier when we had met that I'd done some hiking in the Sierras, and it was always fun to go from Forest Lookout Tower to Forest Lookout Tower. And I haven't done much hiking around there. Are there lookout towers? I mean, they're all over the East Coast, the Adirondacks and all that.
I know there are. I haven't. There used to be one up Abernathy Creek up out of Castle Rock. I don't know if there's any, if it's still up there anymore.
But you see
my
that's sort
wife's
of,
aunt used to sit in it.
yeah, that's sort of my point. They used to be obvious to me back
Yeah.
there.
Over-
They're not
over-
obvious here.
Over in my place in Idaho, there's a couple of them you can
Yeah.
ride up to, and
Yeah, we definitely have a few on the forest. I know of at least 3. Trying to think in terms of, you can hike up and see, I think all of them. I know that we work with partner groups across the agency to refurbish those, and some of them are rec rentals. I'm still getting to know the forest, so I don't remember off the top of my head the status of those. Do you?
I know.
there's some that are, I don't know about the Pinchot, but in forests more up north, but like you say, you can rent them,
Yeah.
and they're beautiful for spending a weekend or something. And
But they're occupied by the Forest Service,
it's on Forest Service. Yeah. And they rent them out.
but it's not operationally a Forest Lookout Tower or.
I
fire
don't think you used lookout towers for sighting fires, or you still do?
There are some around.
Still some around?
Yeah.
Of course, you've got satellites now, which are a big help.
Yeah. Technology that sometimes
okay.
human eye in some of those remote places is
Yeah.
still does the job.
Yeah. When I was go back in time again, but when I sit on that committee during the nineties for that decade, you know, we dealt with DNR and Forest Service and cities and parks and different things. And the Forest Service were always my favorite because I'm a banker. And for whatever reason, you guys always seem to be able to do a lot more with less money. And I was always on the DNR, why can't you do this? You know, you do a lot. And I used to know a lot of the guys, the guy out of the Wenatchee and the guy Gifford Pinchot, and boy, they were a lot of hands-on and went out and did a lot of stuff. So I always enjoyed working with Forest Service. And you always had a lot of volunteers that seemed to help, as was mentioned today, from mountain bike groups to motorized groups to pedestrians to horses. I mean, there was just always seemed a lot of groups all over that wanted to keep the forest up and going. So
Yeah, I think for me, one of the greatest joys of working for the agency is the passion of people for their public lands and for forests in particular. It's really a joy to see on all ends just the deep care that people have over the landscape and over the stewardship of it. It's really just a wonderful thing. And yeah, absolutely. We're really fortunate to have some incredible volunteer groups as well as just individual volunteers that show up to lend a hand and pitch in.
yeah, I try to tell people, and it didn't really dawn on me till I spent a few years on a national committee called NOVAC. And there was people from all over the United States, and you'd hear stories, how they tried to deal with, it had to deal with a lot of private landowners. They just didn't have the resources we have. And so I came to understand what a treasure we have and that you really need to take care of it because it's just not everywhere.
So one, maybe two requests that are piggybacked. Probably, I'd love for you to talk to us about the caves and a little bit of the geology and the formation and then just why, what someone does today. I'm going to go up to the caves. Where would I go? How far would I go in? What equipment do I need if I need any? And this other one's a little bit awkward. You speak a little too fast for my feeble ears.
Yeah, no worries. I can absolutely slow down. So I'm still learning about the geology of the area, being relatively new here, but I can say that the caves on the forest are volcanic in origin, so lava tubes. And the primary one that I would recommend is Ape Cave, which is up by Mount St. Helens, up at a cougar there, and it is open usually mid-May, you know, snow depending, kind of through the end of the season into October. And there usually are, I believe, Forest Service folks out there that will talk to you about, you know, the risks and hazards of going into the cave, as well as information about the cave. I believe there's still folks out there talking about white nose syndrome, which is the disease that's affected so many bats across the country. And just provide you with some information before going in the cave. There's parking out there and there's a couple other trails in the area, but there's two levels to Ape Cave. I believe the lower level is fairly straightforward and easy for most people to access. It's primarily walking, although it is an overhead environment. Would recommend having a helmet. And I think that there are lanterns out there to rent. Don't quote me on that. I would say if you have a headlamp or a flashlight, to bring that along with you. And then the upper level to the cave is a little bit more sporting. There's a little bit more kind of climbing around and climbing up rock piles and kind of ducking your head with some lower overhead environment. So a little bit more of an adventure on the upper level. I don't recall the length off the top of my head, but I would say it's a good day to half day adventure to drive up there and experience the cave, park, maybe have lunch, and then go for a hike on one of the trails that's right there. Outside of Ape Cave, I am not sure what other caves are open to exploration on the forest, but that's definitely something that I myself am interested to learn a little bit more about and could share some more information next time I come about that.
Go ahead.
If I were to somehow magically appear inside Ape Cave and then magically appear in one of the Bend, Oregon caves, would I be able to tell that I'm in Bend as opposed to in Ape Cave? In other words, structurally, how do they compare in exactly what happens to, so it's a lava tube, but then what happens to all the congealed material that was there?
Yeah, so that's a really delightful question. And I think as a casual observer, you would not really be able to tell the difference. Having been in both myself, structurally, they appear fairly similar, formed by the same process. And congealed material either cools and hardens in place or moves on and does that somewhere else. And so you end up with that open tube that people walk through. So I'm trying to think, there are lava tubes down in Central Oregon, down in Northern California, here, of course, in the Mount St. Helens area. Hawaii is really famous for its lava tubes. In fact, depending on how you feel about collapse features or skylights, the lava tubes in Hawaii are quite long in continuous fashion. I'm trying to think if there's other areas off the top of my head in the US, but some of the longest lava tubes in the continental US are in fact right here on the Gifford Pinchot National Forest and in Western Washington. So that's a pretty cool fact. In terms of the actual length, again, I apologize, I don't remember off the top of my head, but Ape Cave is one of those that's quite long.
In Bend, Oregon, there's a lot of obsidian. In fact, trying to walk up some of these obsidian hills is pretty freaky. You know, if you fall, you're going to get cut. Do we have anything like that at Gifford Pinchot?
Oh, I am not sure off the top of my head. I don't know. I could guess, but that would be dangerous territory.
And your guess would be yes?
My guess would be likely yes, but I'm not sure.
Okay, and the reason the obsidian mountain appears is because the very fine material that got fused into a glass.
Yeah, so we're kind of getting into an area that's outside my expertise. My focus was on carbonate systems particularly, but yeah, very basically.
Okay, and the only obsidian I've seen is black. Are there other obsidians?
There are actually, and I'm trying to remember the label for it, but down outside of Central Oregon and in other places too, but I'm most recently from out of the Central Oregon area. I think it's mahogany obsidian. You have obsidian that has some iron in it. So you have some kind of reddish material in with the obsidian itself. And, you know, you could have that occur, I think, in other areas as well, of course.
Like I said, I can ask for a long time.
I know, that's fine, that's fine.
Okay. If I were in your shoes, what would I be concerned about when I see a tour bus come through or a lot of people? Do we cause you a lot of damage? Do the tourists or the visitors, are they a super mixed blessing or just for the most part okay? What can we do that we shouldn't do? What do we do that we shouldn't do?
That's an interesting question.
That's a good one.
Well, I can start by saying that I think that having access to public lands and having visitors come out and be able to experience and see what's out there is always a positive thing. I think being thoughtful about how those folks have access and where, and to make sure that we're sharing with them, you know, where there are places that might be a little more susceptible to impact from people is important. Thinking about things like invasive species and, you know, where there are programs, like this isn't tour bus specific, but thinking about where there are programs to clean watercraft to make sure that we're not tracking invasive species from one body of water to another. Thinking about like going underground, for instance, at Abe Cave, when there are folks traveling from cave to cave, thinking about making sure that equipment or gear or footwear that's gone in one cave is cleaned before it goes into another. So we're not tracking invasive species between one cave to another. Those kinds of things are the things that I think of when I think about, you know, impacts to public lands from large groups. I think being thoughtful about, you know, managing waste disposal and things like that, which we do as part of the work we do in our recreation areas, you know, and teaching a good ethic around that is really important. Ken?
Yeah, kind of similar to that. It's just that having that respect for those public lands, they belong to every one of us. And you mentioned it, Commissioner Dahl there, that, you know, this is a unique place and like a lot of our public lands, and it is unique to the United States to have this kind of resource and the ability to go out there. And yeah, people treat it like they would treat their home, I think is kind of how I look at it personally. We have some leave no trace kind of ideologies, pack it in, pack it out, those sorts of things. But it's just that sort of that basic respect for the resource that we have out there. It's going to have to last a long time. And, you know, those lands will be here long after we're gone, and we want them to stay in a good condition.
Yeah. Over the many years that I've been recreating on these type of lands, it seems like more respect is given to the forest lands, and it may be because people that are serious and take the time to make that travel and have the skill level to do some of the stuff up in the forest lands. Not everybody can do. They understand better. I know I've never seen the damage up in the forest lands that I will see on down low DNR or when you could do Warehouser and stuff like that. I don't think I've ever come around a corner and seen refrigerators and stoves and, car hulks and stuff in that in the national forest. And I've seen plenty of that when you get down low. I think it's just takes more effort to do that. And seems to be a better respect for the folks that recreate up in those type of areas.
Sure.
I go to Paradise up this side of Mount Rainier, and if you hike up a little bit, you'll find people just blatantly ignoring to stay on the trails, and that's a pretty fragile ecosystem there. And I've yelled at people, but I've even tried to report them, and I don't know, does something happen if it's hard for you to take action if I say, well, I saw a guy off the trail. I don't know what you can do with that, but it is pretty annoying. Paradise attracts a lot of tourists from all around the world, and for them, their universe is right then, oh, this is marvelous. Look, there's a little bit of snow down there, and oh, I thought I saw a marmot there. Let me go, and
Yeah.
they tear up the area.
Yeah.
Speaking of the marmots, what kind of animals do you typically see in at the Gifford Pinchot?
Oh, lots of elk, as you all know. I picked up on that as soon as I got here.
Are they in good condition though?
I didn't get a good look at them.
No, I mean, a hoof rot, you can.
Yeah, most of the ones I've seen, you got a real herd that hangs around Packwood and back and forth, and they look in pretty good shape.
Sure. Yeah.
They look.
They look in pretty good shape.
Got it.
Arn, I haven't seen, I've told you out where I live, I used to have a herd of 20 and there's nothing around anymore. The hoof rot has really gotten to them, but most of what I see up there is they look okay.
Yeah. Lots of deer, bear, I'm sure, based on my
Yeah.
experience
I've
in
come across the bear before.
Oregon. I've just been fascinated with the amount of biodiversity that's here. Just, like I said, I haven't been here that long, and it's just, I'm in hog heaven. I saw native tiger lilies yesterday, which was so cool.
Huh.
Yeah, we were up at Wind River down in Skamania and just at the Arboretum down there. If you haven't been, that's a neat place.
Yeah.
But I've kicked around a little bit up here since I got here, and yeah, it's pretty neat. I can't wait to find out myself what's running around out there and what's growing.
Lots of insects.
Lots of insects, I'm sure.
Get up on some of the high stuff. I said, how do they get up here? Why are you flying this high? Go down.
Mosquitoes or other kinds of insects.
A lot of
I bet
mosquitoes.
the mosquitoes
Yeah.
are something around here.
They go, what are you doing up here?
Yeah,
And you're familiar, obviously, with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation?
correct. Yeah, they're a
And,
great partner.
Yeah, they seem like they're the right stuff. It's uh, over by Lewis River Road someplace. A couple of years ago, maybe 2 years on my scale, could be anywhere from 5 to whatever, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I went and there was a big celebration that included the county and others uh, for an area where we bought habitat. And at that place, there had been a lava flow quite a long time ago that had encased tree trunks. And then the tree trunks did not petrify, they just decomposed. And you can look down in one of those, and occasionally you can see a stream going through, and it may be 4 or 5 feet down. I
Wow.
thought that was absolutely fascinating, but it's pretty hard to get there, and it's blocked off. And I don't disagree with that, but doesn't mean I like it. I mean, but it does do the filtering there. If you put a parking lot right next to that, you're going to get everybody. If you've got to walk and wend around, you filter out the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a trail system over there by Ape Cave, and I'm trying to remember if it's in the same parking lot or not, but I believe is it the Lava Cast Forest Trail? Is that what it's called?
Hmm.
I'll have to look it up to make sure I'm getting that right, but it's a place where the agency, the Gifford Pinchot Recreation Group, built a trail with some boardwalk and things like that around features similar to that, where people can go for a hike and see those. And I think there's some interpretive signs as well. So there is a location where people can go and experience that. Maybe not exactly the same as what you described, but it's similar.
You mentioned forest resilience. I'd love a definition of that.
Yeah, so we're looking at the impacts of climate change on our forests across the country. And so we're really looking at resilience to changing climate overall. With that comes insect and disease impacts on our forests, and increased risk to devastating wildfires. So we're really looking at how we can address overall resiliency for the forest ecosystem to that overarching factor, but all of the things that are linked to that we're seeing have impacts on our forest habitat, and thinking how we can address that in a sustainable and robust way going forward.
I don't know. I have much else. I think I've always felt, well, after watching Mount St. Helens and then I think the floods of 95 and 96, it just wiped out a whole lot of stuff up there. And Mother Nature's pretty good at coming back. We got to take care of her, but she's pretty resilient as long as we don't. I always say we'll destroy ourselves before, and she'll return before we destroy her. I don't want to do stupid things to it, but Mother Nature's pretty amazing.
Yeah, the oceanographers spend a lot of time trying to figure out how they can put a breakwater someplace and not impact anything else but what they want. And Mother Nature says, I'm going to do it my way. And there actually was, not that this is important, one of the breakwaters that is used is take a ball that's afloat, anchor it down, and just use that as a breakwater. It lets the flow go through and all that, but it tends to dampen all the stuff that you're trying to dampen.
Yeah.
But I've been puzzled by the idea that the sediment retention dam and all that was going to endure for any length of time. So was that just the expedient thought, or did somebody really think through? Because you're always having to dredge. And we haven't dredged around here. Well, you probably remember the last time dredged. I think it was before I got here.
Been a long time.
Yeah. And so it's no surprise that things are changing on
Yeah.
that.
Had a conversation with our federal lobbyists, this is kind of getting away from the forest a little bit, but one of the things we talked about is I said, Mount St. Helens is a unique event. And I don't know any place else in the United States that is dealing with that type of event. That sediment's going to flow. It's going to flow my lifetime. It's probably going to flow my kid's lifetime. It's going to flow ever. And my point is to them is that from Fed, if we've decided this is our fix for it to help control the sediment, if that's what our fix is, then just put the funding in the budget and just do it. Quit with all the nonsense where you have to apply for all this stuff. If that's the decision we've made, that's how we want to deal with all the sediment, is either dredge it or dam it or whatever it is, to make that decision and then say, well, I don't think we can send you any money this year. That's crazy to me. Either at the time it went, you let the Mother Nature does what it wants to do and you build around it, or you make a decision to try and control it. And of course, we're humans, so we're going to control it. And then you just need to bite the bullet and do that.
Following through that on a slightly ancillary tangent, I read several years ago a Smithsonian article where some archaeologists had found that on a receding glacier, I think it was Greenland, they had found artifacts and home kind of stuff under there. And it always struck me as interesting because people think that there is a set temperature that the earth should be. And I don't know what that is. And where do you put the thermometer? Back then, those people were probably pretty unhappy that their climate was changing and they were going to freeze. And
Yeah.
of course, we've had all the predictions of.
I lived through the coming ice age in 72. I think I still have I think I still have the newspaper article.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're only human, so we are susceptible to, better be careful.
Yeah.
We're also susceptible to a touch of hubris, but we've survived from adaptability, not that we can put a blanket over Mount St. Helens and says, you will no longer deposit silt.
Before we let you go here, you ask, what you can do for us. I would turn around and say, I'd like to know what we can do for you too, because I love having that forest up in there, and anything we can do to help promote it and help you folks. I think I'm safe in saying the county would be a willing partner in doing that too.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think I really appreciate that. And what I've learned so far in the forest is that the Gifford Pinchot has incredible partners and collaborations across the board, but especially with our counties. So yeah, as I learn more about what opportunities we have to continue to work with you, as well as to broaden those opportunities, I'll definitely be sharing those.
Yeah. When we talked about elk, that reminds me, in July, I believe in July, we're having a gal from WSU. That's doing the study on the hoof rat.
That was another question. She's at Washington State University.
Yeah.
Anyhow, she was doing an investigation, and she came by to speak to us, and that was a researcher that I thought understood what research is. So I had a lot of confidence. So I'm really interested.
I'm really interested in seeing she has, because we have, I don't see that issue in Idaho, and I ask about it over there. I don't know if you saw it up in there, but when I asked the locals around there, and nobody sees it over in there, so I don't know why we have it over here, and predominantly, I think, Western Washington predominantly. So I'm really interested in listening to her and seeing if she's found anything.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that as well. There had something with the elk in Idaho. It had some asphyxiation for the elk, but not the hoof rot.
Yeah.
Yeah, different environment over here for sure.
The asphyxiation could be the coyotes on them, and
Yeah,
squeezing
I
off.
don't know. I'm not a
teasing.
wildlife biologist. So I'm interested in that stuff though. Science is cool.
Yeah.
Do we have any issues like aftosa?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, do we have any issues with diseases like aftosa that would go with the cattle or something like that?
Like the brucellosis or something like that?
I don't know what the official names are.
Yeah.
So my grandfather would be angry at me, but I would have to plead
Oh,
ignorance.
that's okay. I don't know anything about that.
I know in places I've been, when you drive, the cars are made to drive over a mat of some kind slowly, and you're supposed to walk out of the car and walk on a mat, get back in the car that's on the mat and drive, and that lets you go in and out while presumably you can't stop it, because if you have it on your shoes, it's in your car, you put in, I don't know what kind of material they probably used the DDT in those days. I'm only half serious there.
Yeah, you've got my curiosity peak now. I have to do my own research.
Yeah, let me see if it even exists today. That's the trouble when you're quite old, that things that used to be common are no longer exist. Some of it is good, like mostly polio and other such diseases.
And the
were
benefit
already-
of having a phone at your disposal that can look that up, right?
Oh, I have the computer here, but
that
I'm using
too,
the
that-
phone.
Technology is amazing.
Okay. AFTOSA. Aftosa bovina.
Hmm.
That sounds like probably where I want to go. Oh. It's in Spanish.
Oh,
La fiebre aftosa del ganado o glossopeda del griego and so forth. Es una enfermedad, it's a disease episodic that causes viral and contagious between cattle, sheep, pigs, and goats. And it manifests itself as high fever and development of ulcers in the mouth called aftas. Anyhow, so it does exist still, I guess. Wasn't this rewarding?
It it was. I've told this story before, and I gotta say it again. Arn is fluent in different languages, but he was up here one day and he started speaking in Spanish, and we have people online, and somebody commented online saying, Arn's mic is muffled. I said, no, he's just speaking in Spanish.
It could have been muffled too.
Yeah,
I mean, but from my side.
yeah. Well, I didn't.
But these two folks also speak Spanish. They both do. In fact,
Yeah.
I'm told all the reputable, important people in this room speak Spanish.
Well, that's true. I'll just pack up and go home.
Whoops, there's the board's lighting up.
Well, Anything else? Yeah. Man, we've appreciated you coming in tonight and sitting with us. Don't be a stranger. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah. And
I was just going to say thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I beg your pardon?
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise. I was going to say the public, we only have one person who has zoomed in from outside, and topics for Wednesdays we're very susceptible to suggestions.
Yeah,
Well, not all suggestions, Mike.
but yeah, anytime we make a note, we'll schedule you down the line when you've had more time in here, because I think it's good for us to hear, and we get you on a day when we have more people in the audience. I think there'd be some interest in that too.
Yeah. As specifically to what you might do if there was a time a time in the future where you said, this is a pretty extensive, important project for us, and we'd certainly entertain it having on a Wednesday. You bring a presentation, we can actually, this gets recorded and gets posted, and once, you might not see a lot of people here today, but at something like that, you might not see too many people then, but the word will spread. Oh, better take a look at the recording and you'll see this and that. So
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Any miscellaneous from, you got some, sure?
uh-oh.
Happy end of school to everyone. I know that as we head into the summer, that does increase the demands for childcare in our community. And if you didn't know, childcare is really expensive and not always available for when families need it here in our community. So I just wanted to share a little bit of information about that Cal's Community Network has a new program to support people that are doing that kind of informal childcare role. So it's a program for friends, family, and neighbor, people that are spending time with kids. We are doing play groups in a couple times a month across the county. It's open to anyone that's interested in this, that's caring for children. It's an opportunity to meet other people doing that kind of role and get connected to resources and information that might help you. When we surveyed and asked the community what's important related to childcare, definitely safety comes to mind for people. So part of what we're offering is the chance to get first aid training and certification. So if you're a parent and you have someone that's caring for your children and you'd like them to get some more of that information, help increase safety when we're doing that childcare, you can go to the Cowlitz Community Network website and sign up for that. And there's other options. There's also a book club if you're interested in learning more about good skills and tips to help you. And as you're doing that childcare role, we have a conscious discipline book club that we're offering. So this is a new thing we're trying to do to provide more resources to help people with childcare needs in our community. Just wanted to share that. Thank
One
you.
quick question, you use the term "we"?
Yeah, excuse me. I'm the board chair for Cowlitz Community Network.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good for you. Anything else?
I just wanted to address, from what I thought I heard from them, they're asking maybe for events and stuff that they can be involved in. Is that what I heard? Something like maybe the fair or something, you guys can set them up with that kind of stuff so they can have a booth and people can know more. So I was just,
Sure.
I heard that from them and I didn't hear any response on those. So I don't know if we have an Earth Day here in Cowlitz County. I know we do in Longview, but those kind of events, I think they would be great at.
Yeah, absolutely. Earth Day, I will say with the caveat, you know, as I mentioned, capacity wise, we are working on building capacity. And so our ability to staff all of those at this point is a little ambitious, but once we know what events are out there that we could be present at, we'll do our best to be present, to show up, whether it's Dan and myself or some of our public affairs folks or recreation folks. But yes, it'd be good to get a list so that we have some idea of what's out there and can start to show up to help answer questions from the public.
Yeah.
Let's sponsor more questions, if I may.
Mhm.
The Johnston Ridge Center, that's the Forest Service that operates that, or
Yeah, Johnston Ridge Observatory is staffed by Forest Service there at Mount St.
what's
Helens.
going to happen to them now that access to it is pretty well curtailed?
So we're working in partnership with the Washington State Department of Transportation to hopefully have access again in the future. We're still working on timelines for that. But in the meantime, we've also been working with Ray there at Mount St. Helens Institute at Coldwater to
Mhm.
provide information to visitors that are wanting to have some access and some visitation there at Mount St. Helens. So in the meantime, I believe we'll be providing information to folks there at the Coldwater Center, and then hoping to have Johnston Ridge Observatory back up and running. Not unfortunately this season or the summer, but hopefully soon. And we'll be sharing out timelines about that as soon as we know anything that's solid.
So the employees are going to be all right?
Yeah, so we have, again, there at Coldwater, we'll have, I believe we're gonna have folks there. And I think we've got plenty of opportunities for our rec folks to get out on the ground and help with visitor contact as well as work. Dan, can you speak a little more specifically to plans recently?
For the employees. Oh, there's plenty of trail work to go around, develop recreation sites. We never have enough people to do all the work that's out there. So there's plenty of recreation type opportunities for them to do work, which then again supports that local tourist economy and makes things nice for the visitors to the area. So we will put them to work. They will be staying locally here.
So when you speak of it, maybe opening up next season, next year, is that a sure thing, do you suppose?
No, like I said, we don't have any particular dates right now for reopening. Really hopeful that we know how important Johnston Ridge Observatory and tourism at Mount St. Helens is for the economy here locally. And so again, between us and Washington State Department of Transportation, that's definitely on our minds. We want to ensure that the work on State Road 504 and the bridge, that everything is done safely so that we can ensure that whatever access is there is safe and sustainable. And so with that in mind, again, I know Washington State Department of Transportation, as well as us on the Forest Service side are working together to reopen as soon as can be safely done. But in terms of a particular date for that, I don't have one at this time.
Okay, thank you.
You may move some people and put more pressure on you up through Randall and Cougar, but the other sides. Hard to tell.
Yeah, we're hoping to provide some good access to St. Helens down around through that side. However, with that same event that created the South Coldwater slide, we're seeing some additional landslides on the forest and working to address those as well, hopefully quickly here. But that was definitely one of our plans, was to share access information through other routes.
Yeah. Okay,
We're okay unless the audience asks another question.
yeah. We're good. I don't see anything else. Once again, thank you for the time. And we will adjourn this. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.